crystal chandelier shook as Marcus Montgomery slammed his glass onto the podium. He didn't look at the cameras or the 500 elite guests. He looked right at his wife, Adanna. "A political leader needs a legacy," Marcus shouted, his voice echoing through the ballroom. "But how can I build a future with a woman who is empty? My wife is barren. She has failed this marriage and this country." A heavy silence swallowed the room. Adanna stood perfectly still. She could feel the heat of 1,000 judgmental eyes. Her husband, the man whose career she had built with her own blood and sweat, had just turned her private pain into a public execution. But then the heavy oak doors of the gala swung open. A man walked in with the shadow of a king and the eyes of a wolf. It was Ryu Jin-Woo, the most feared name in the underworld. He didn't look at Marcus. He walked straight to Adanna, wrapped a heavy coat around her shoulders, and turned to the crowd. "She is not barren." Jin-Woo's voice was like rolling thunder. "She is carrying my empire, and anyone who speaks her name again will answer to me." Adanna felt the world spinning. The barren comment was a lie Marcus used to cover his own tracks, but the crowd didn't know that. They only saw a woman who had been discarded. Marcus stood on the stage, looking proud. He thought he had won. He thought that by shamming Adanna, he could move his mistress, Chloe, into the spotlight without any questions. But Ryu Jin-Woo's presence changed the air in the room. He wasn't just a businessman, he was the head of Vanguard, a group that stayed in the shadows but controlled the city. When he placed his hand on the small of Adanna's back, the cameras went wild. The flashes were blinding. Adanna looked up at him, her eyes searching his. She didn't know why he was helping her. They had only met once, years ago, in a deal that stayed off the record. "Walk," Jin-Woo said softly. It wasn't a command, it was an invitation. Adanna straightened her spine. She was a PR fixer. She knew that in this moment, silence was her best weapon. She didn't cry. She didn't scream at Marcus. She simply turned her back on her husband and walked out of the gala with the most dangerous man in the country. The black SUV was armored and smelled like expensive leather and cedarwood. As soon as the door closed, the noise of the shouting reporters vanished. Adanna sat as far away from Jin-Woo as possible. Her heart was beating against her ribs like a trapped bird. She waited for him to explain himself, but he just stared out the window. "Why?" Adanna finally asked. Her voice was steady, even though she felt like she was falling apart. "You just told the world I'm carrying your child. Do you have any idea what that does to your reputation? To mine?" Jin-Woo turned his head. His eyes were dark and unreadable. "Marcus Montgomery is a small man trying to play a big game," he said. "He insulted something that didn't belong to him. He insulted my interests." "I am not an interest, Mr. Ryu," Adanna snapped. "Tonight, you are the most important person in this city," he replied. "Marcus wants to destroy your name so he can take your assets. I want to destroy Marcus because he thinks he's untouchable. We have the same goal. From this moment on, you are the Queen of Vanguard. If the world thinks you are carrying my heir, no one can touch you." By 6:00 a.m., the video of the gala was the only thing people were talking about. The headline "Empire or Affair" was plastered across every digital billboard. Adanna sat in Jin-Woo's penthouse watching the news. Marcus was already on TV looking flustered. He was trying to claim that Adanna had been unfaithful, but the public wasn't buying it. People loved a dark romance more than a bitter politician. Jin-Woo walked into the room wearing a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He dropped a thick folder on the table. "This is the contract," he said. "For the next 6 months, we are a couple. You will manage the PR for my company to make it look legitimate. In return, I will provide the protection and the proof of our relationship. When Marcus is ruined, we part ways." Adanna looked at the folder. She was a professional. She knew how to spin a story, but this felt different. This wasn't just a lie, it was a total takeover of her life. "And what happens when people realize there is no baby?" she asked. Jin-Woo leaned down, his face inches from hers. "In 6 months, so much will have changed that they won't even remember to ask." Adanna's team of tech experts, led by a man named Elias, arrived at the penthouse. They were the best in the business at hiding tracks and finding dirt. "Marcus is moving fast," Elias reported. "He's trying to freeze your bank accounts, Adanna. He claims you're mentally unstable because of the fertility issues." Adanna felt a surge of anger. Marcus knew how much she had wanted a family. Using that against her was a new level of evil. She looked at Jin-Woo. "I need to go to the office. My office. I need my hard drives." "It's a trap," Jin-Woo warned. "He has men waiting there." "Then send your men," Adanna challenged. "If I'm carrying your empire, show the world how you protect it." A small smirk appeared on Jin-Woo's face. He liked her fire. He stood up and grabbed his jacket. "Get the cars ready," he told his guards. "We're going for a walk." They arrived at the Montgomery PR firm 10 minutes later. The lobby was packed with reporters. When Jin-Woo and Adanna walked in, the security guards Marcus had hired tried to step forward. Jin-Woo didn't even stop. He just looked at them and they backed away. Power wasn't just about money, it was about the air you carried. Marcus was in Adanna's office, throwing her files into boxes. When he saw her walk in with Jin-Woo, his face turned a sickly shade of grey. "You have no right to be here," Marcus yelled. "This firm is marital property." "Actually," Adanna said, her voice cool and sharp, "the lease is in my name, the clients are mine, and the security footage of you bringing Chloe here last month, that's mine too." Marcus pointed a shaking finger at Jin-Woo. "You're sleeping with a criminal, Adanna. You think this Mafia boss cares about you. He's using you." Jin-Woo stepped forward, placing himself between Adanna and Marcus. He didn't raise his hand, but Marcus cowered anyway. "I don't care about your politics, Montgomery," Jin-Woo said. "But you spoke about my woman in public. You shamed her. In my world, we don't use lawyers for that. We use grav. Be glad she wants to do this her way." Adanna grabbed her hard drive and looked at her husband one last time. "The divorce papers will be served by noon. Don't bother calling. My empire doesn't have room for you." To make the empire story believable, Adanna and Jin-Woo had to be seen together. They scheduled a lunch at the most popular restaurant in the city. Adanna chose a dress that was elegant but soft, something that hinted at a new chapter. As they sat at the window table, Adanna noticed how Jin-Woo watched the room. He was always on guard. "You never relax, do you?" she asked, picking at her salad. "Relaxing gets people killed," he replied. Then his expression softened slightly. "You're doing well. Most people would be hiding under their covers after a night like last night." "I spent 10 years making Marcus look like a hero," Adanna said, her voice dipping with emotion. "I forgot how to be my own hero. I won't let him take anything else from me." Jin-Woo reached across the table. For a moment she thought he was just doing it for the cameras outside, but his thumb brushed against her knuckles in a way that felt real. It was warm and grounded. "He won't," Jin-Woo promised. "I've spent my life taking things. I know how to keep them too." Chloe Vance, Marcus's mistress, wasn't going to go down without a fight. She posted a long video on social media, crying. She claimed Adanna was the villain who had ignored Marcus for years, and that their love was the only thing keeping him going. She even hinted that Adanna's pregnancy with Jin-Woo was proof of a long-term affair. "She's good," Elias said, showing the trending hashtags to Adanna. "People are starting to wonder if you were the cheater all along." Adanna didn't panic. "She's playing the victim. We need to play the power couple. People don't care about the truth, they care about who looks more successful." She turned to Jin-Woo. "We need to host a charity event. Tonight, we'll invite the people Marcus is trying to impress for his next campaign. If they show up to our party, they're officially choosing your side over his." Jin-Woo nodded. "Name the place. My staff will handle the rest. But Adanna, if we do this, there is no turning back. You'll be tied to the Vanguard name forever." "At least the Vanguard name has honor," she replied, "which is more than I can say for the Montgomerys." The charity gala was put together in 6 hours. It was a show of pure, raw wealth. The city's elite, who usually avoided the Mafia, couldn't resist the drama. They all showed up, wanting to see the Barren wife and the Mafia king together. Adanna wore a gold gown that looked like armor. Beside her, Jin-Woo was a wall of black silk and dangerous charm. As they moved through the room, Adanna watched the guests. She saw Senator Vance, Chloe's father, standing in the corner. He looked furious. "He's the one funding Marcus," Adanna whispered to Jin-Woo as they danced. Jin-Woo pulled her closer. His hand was firm on her waist. "I've already started buying up the debt on his companies," he said. "By the time the sun comes up, the senator will owe me more than he can ever pay back. He won't be funding anyone." Adanna looked into his eyes. She realized then that Jin-Woo wasn't just protecting her. He was dismantling her enemies brick by brick. The line between their fake relationship and reality was starting to blur. After the gala, the adrenaline wore off. They were back at the penthouse. The lights of the city twinkled below them. Adanna sat on the balcony, shivering in the cool air. Jin-Woo appeared behind her and draped his jacket over her shoulders. "It's over for tonight," he said. Adanna sighed. "Marcus said those things because he knew they would hurt. I did want a family, Jin-Woo. Being called empty in front of the world. It leaves a mark." Jin-Woo sat down next to her. He didn't use any of the tough guy lines, he just looked at the horizon. "My father told me I was a monster before I was 10 years old, he said quietly. "People say things to make us feel small so they can feel big, but look at this city. Look at what you've done in 24 hours. You aren't empty, Adanna, you're overflowing." She looked at him, surprised by his honesty. For the first time, she didn't see a Mafia boss. She saw someone who understood what it was like to be judged by the world. The next morning, the drama took a dark turn. A tabloid announced they had obtained confidential medical records, proving Adanna could never have children. It was Marcus's last-ditch effort to prove she was lying about the pregnancy. Adanna's phone wouldn't stop ringing. If that file gets out, the Empire story dies, Elias warned, and your reputation goes with it. Jin-Woo's face turned into stone. He made one phone call. Find out who has the file, now. Within an hour, they had the name of the tabloid editor. Jin-Woo didn't send a lawyer. He drove there himself, with Adanna in the passenger seat. When they walked into the editor's office, the man looked like he wanted to jump out the window. I have rights, the editor yelled. Freedom of the press. Jin-Woo leaned over his desk. He didn't shout. He spoke in a low, terrifying crawl. You have 30 seconds to delete that file and tell me who sent it to you. If you don't, I will buy this building and level it while you're still inside. The editor fumbled with his mouse. It was Marcus. He sent it from a burner email. We have the proof, Adanna said as they left the building. Marcus leaked private medical records. That's a felony. We could put him in jail, Jin-Woo suggested. No, Adanna said, her eyes flashing. Jail is too easy. I want him to watch as everything he loves is taken away. I want him to see me sitting on the throne he thought he deserved. She spent the afternoon coordinating with the major news networks. She didn't deny the medical records. Instead, she turned the narrative. She did a short live video. My medical history is mine, she told the world. The fact that a politician would steal and leak private data just to hurt his ex-wife shows exactly what kind of leader he is. Is this who you want in office? The public's sympathy shifted instantly. Marcus went from a betrayed husband to a dangerous creep. That evening, Adanna and Jin-Woo were working in the study. The tension in the room wasn't just about the scandal anymore. Every time their eyes met, there was a spark. You're very good at this, Jin-Woo said, watching her work the phones. I've had a lot of practice, she replied. She stood up to get a glass of water, but she tripped over a stray laptop cord. Jin-Woo moved faster than she could blink. He caught her by the arms, pulling her against his chest. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Neither of them moved. The air felt thick, like it was charged with electricity. Adanna, he said, his voice deep and rough. We have a contract, she reminded him, though her voice was barely a breath. The contract doesn't say I can't feel this, he replied. He didn't kiss her, but he didn't let go. He held her there for a long moment, a silent promise between them. Senator Vance realized the ship was sinking. He called Adanna, begging for a meeting. She met him in a quiet park, with Jin-Woo's guards watching from the trees. I'll drop Marcus, the senator said, sounding tired. I'll pull his funding today. Just tell your friend to stop buying up my companies. Adanna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It's too late for that, Senator. You let your daughter and Marcus try to destroy me. Now you're going to help me finish it. What do you want? Vance asked. I want the keys to Marcus's secret campaign fund, she said. I know he's been skimming money. Give me the passwords and I'll let you keep your house. The senator looked at the guards, then back at Adanna. He realized he was no longer dealing with a PR girl. He was dealing with a woman who had the underworld behind her. He handed her a small USB drive. Marcus had one last public appearance, a televised debate for the upcoming election. He thought he could still save his career by appealing to traditional values. Adanna and Jin-Woo watched from the wings of the stage. Marcus looked terrible. He was sweating and his hair was messy. When he started his opening speech, he tried to bring up Adanna again, my ex-wife and her criminal lover. The screen behind him suddenly flickered to life. It wasn't his campaign logo. It was a list of bank transactions, thousands of dollars moving from his campaign fund to Chloe's private accounts. Then an audio clip played. It was Marcus, laughing about how he was going to get rid of the Barren weight and use the senator's money to buy a yacht. The audience gasped. The moderator looked stunned. Marcus turned around, staring at the screen in horror. That's not real, Marcus screamed at the cameras. It's a deepfake. Adanna did this. Adanna walked out onto the stage. She wasn't hiding. She looked like a goddess of vengeance. It's very real, Marcus, she said into her own microphone, and it's all been sent to the police, along with the records of you stealing my medical files. Jin-Woo walked out behind her. He didn't say a word. He just stood there, his presence enough to make Marcus collapse into his chair. The empire I'm carrying, Adanna said, looking directly into the camera, isn't just about a child. It's about justice. It's about never letting a man like this hold power again. The crowd erupted into cheers. Marcus was led away by his own security team, who looked like they wanted nothing to do with him. The scandal was over. Marcus was in custody and Chloe had fled the country. The empire was safe. Adanna sat in the penthouse, feeling a strange sense of emptiness. The fight was gone, and now there was only the silence. Jin-Woo walked in with 2 cups of coffee. He set one down in front of her. "The lawyers say the divorce is finalized," he said. "You're a free woman." "Free," Adanna repeated. She looked at the contract on the table. "Our 6 months aren't up." "I don't care about the contract," Jin-Woo said. He sat down across from her. "I never did. I just wanted an excuse to be near you." Adanna felt a lump in her throat. "You risked everything for a lie, Jin-Woo." "It wasn't a lie," he said softly. "I told them you were carrying my empire. This penthouse, the companies, the future, it's all yours if you want it. I don't need an heir to have a legacy. I just need you." Just as things seemed perfect, Elias burst into the room. "We have a problem, a big one." He turned on the TV. It wasn't Marcus. It was a man from Jin-Woo's past, a rival boss from the south. "Ryu Jin-Woo has gone soft," the man said in a recorded video. "He's playing house with a PR girl. If she's carrying his heir, then that heir is a target. We're coming for the crown." Adanna felt a chill run down her spine. The public scandal was over, but the Mafia part of the story was just beginning. Jin-Woo stood up, his face returning to that cold, hard mask. "I should have known," he muttered. He looked at Adanna. "I need to move you to a safe house." "No," Adanna said, standing up with him. "We did this together. I'm not hiding." The safe house was a fortress tucked away in the mountains. It was beautiful but lonely. Adanna spent her days looking at security feeds, while Jin-Woo handled the business of war. One night he came back late, covered in dust and looking exhausted. Adanna met him at the door with a warm towel. As she cleaned a small cut on his cheek, he caught her hand. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "This isn't your world." "I made it my world when I walked out of that gala with you," she replied. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his. "Don't try to push me away now." He let out a long breath and pulled her into a hug. It wasn't a Mafia boss hug. It was the hug of a man who was terrified of losing the only thing that made him feel human. "They're finding our locations too fast," Jin-Woo said to his captains. "Someone is talking." Adanna watched the men. She was a fixer. She knew how to spot a liar. She noticed one of the younger guards, Kenji, looking at his phone too often. She didn't tell Jin-Woo. She decided to fix it herself. She followed Kenji into the garden. "Who are you calling?" she asked, her voice like ice. The boy jumped. "Just my mother, ma'am." "Your mother lives in the south, doesn't she?" Adanna stepped closer. "Right in the territory of the man trying to kill us. How much are they paying you to trade Jin-Woo's life for hers?" The boy broke down. He told her everything. Adanna didn't call the guards. She sat him down and gave him a choice. "Help us trap them, or I let Jin-Woo find out on his own. And you know what he does to traitors." Using the information from Kenji, Jin-Woo set a trap. They made it look like they were moving Adanna to a new location. The rival gang attacked the convoy, thinking they had the upper hand. But the cars were empty. Jin-Woo's men surrounded the attackers in the valley. It was a swift, bloodless surrender. Adanna watched from the control room. She realized that power wasn't just about violence, it was about information. When Jin-Woo returned, he looked at her with a new kind of respect. "You handled the mole," he said, "without a single bullet." "I told you," she said with a small smile. "I'm a fixer." With the rival gang defeated, Jin-Woo was more powerful than ever, but the media started to get suspicious. They hadn't seen a baby bump yet. The reporters were calling it the fake pregnancy of the century. "We need to address it," Adanna said. "We can't keep the lie going." "Then we tell the truth," Jin-Woo said. "The truth that we lied to everyone." Adanna shook her head. "No, we tell them the truth about why we did it. We show them the humanity behind the masks." They sat down for a live interview. Adanna didn't wear gold this time. She wore a simple white sweater. She talked about the pain of being shamed by her husband. She talked about how Jin-Woo stood up for her when no one else would. "There is no baby," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "but there is an empire of 2 people who refuse to let the world break them." The interview didn't ruin them. It made them icons. People loved the honesty. They loved that a Mafia boss was actually a protector. The #RealEmpire started trending. Adanna and Jin-Woo walked through a public park the next day. For the first time, there were no guards. People waved at them. Some women even came up to Adanna and thanked her for speaking out about fertility and shame. "You did it," Jin-Woo said, watching her. "You fixed the unfixable." "We did it," she corrected. She realized she didn't miss her old life at all. The high-stress world of political PR was nothing compared to the reality of being with someone who actually saw her. But Marcus wasn't done. From his prison cell, he had managed to get a message to a rogue journalist. He claimed he had proof that Jin-Woo had murdered a rival years ago. If this goes out, Jin-Woo goes to prison for life, Elias warned. Adanna looked at the evidence. It was a photo, but it was blurry. I can fix this, she said, but I need to go to the source. She visited Marcus in prison. He looked terrible, his face thin and pale. Give me the original photo, she said. Why would I do that? Marcus sneered. I want to see him rot. Because if you don't, Adanna leaned in close to the glass, I'll make sure your mistress, Chloe, is charged as your accomplice in the embezzlement case. She'll be in the cell next to yours for 20 years. Is that what you want for your true love? Marcus broke. He gave her the location of the original photo. It wasn't Jin-Woo in the picture, it was his father. Jin-Woo had been taking the blame for years to protect his family's name. Adanna destroyed the photo. She didn't use it for PR. She just burned it in the fireplace of the penthouse. When Jin-Woo found out, he stayed silent for a long time. Why did you use it to clear my name publicly? Because your name is already clear to me, she said, and the world doesn't need to know your family's secrets. You're free from that ghost now. He pulled her into his arms and kissed her. It wasn't for the cameras, it wasn't for the empire, it was for them. A month later, life had settled into a beautiful rhythm. Adanna was the CEO of her own firm, and Jin-Woo had turned Vanguard into a fully legal logistics giant. They were the most powerful couple in the city. They were having dinner on the balcony when Adanna's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. It was a picture of a positive pregnancy test. Adanna looked at Jin-Woo, her heart stopping. She hadn't sent that. What is it? Jin-Woo asked, noticing her face. Before she could answer, the front door of the penthouse was kicked open. A woman stood there, looking disheveled and desperate. It was Chloe Vance, and she was holding a gun. You think you get the happy ending? Chloe screamed. Marcus is gone because of you. Now I'm going to make sure the Empire actually dies. The gunshot changed everything. One bullet just shattered the silence of the Vanguard penthouse, and the Empire Adanna worked so hard to build is now covered in blood. But whose blood is it? Did Jin-Woo take the hit to protect the woman he finally admitted he loves? Or did Adanna's past finally catch up to her in the most violent way possible? And that pregnancy test, if Adanna didn't send it, who is really carrying the next heir to the Vanguard throne? There is a secret hidden in that penthouse that is far more dangerous than Marcus Montgomery ever was. The next chapter is already being written, and the stakes are no longer just about reputation, they're about survival. If you felt your heart stop when Chloe kicked that door open, you need to hit that like button right now to signal your loyalty to the Empire. Subscribe and turn on all notifications. If you don't, you'll be left in the dark when the truth behind that gunshot is revealed. Drop a comment below with your theory. Who was the target, and who is really pregnant? The most brilliant theory might just find its way into the next episode. Stay tuned, the fallout is going to be beautiful and deadly.